My mother-in-law, MIL, sabotaged my first Mother's Day by roping my husband into doing yard work instead of spending it with me and our infant son. So I retaliated by disrupting his Father's Day and issued an ultimatum: choose between his mother and our marriage. Our son will turn 1 later this summer, making this our first Mother's Day and Father's Day as parents. I told my husband what I wanted for Mother's Day. I didn't ask for anything extravagant or costly. I requested that he wake up with our son, feed him, and let me relax while I pumped. I wanted a simple breakfast in bed: toast, scrambled eggs, and coffee. Most importantly, I was excited for us to take our son to the zoo for his first visit. After that, I planned for us to eat at my favorite taco restaurant for dinner, fitting the outing between our son's morning and afternoon naps, giving us about 4 hours of awake time. The zoo is roughly 30 minutes away, so I calculated that if we left right after his nap and lunch, we'd have a couple of hours there, and he could nap in the car on the way back if needed. The weekend before Mother's Day, we took my mom and Mael out for brunch to honor them as grandmothers. My mom on Saturday, Mael on Sunday. I also gave each a thoughtful gift and flowers to celebrate their first Mother's Day as grandparents. I planned everything carefully and informed my mom and Mill via a group chat, which included my husband, my dad, and my father-in-law, Phil, that we'd be celebrating Mother's Day as our small family of 3. My mother-in-law is extremely overbearing, so I wanted to avoid any misunderstandings or surprises. The Saturday before Mother's Day, my FIL texted my husband a photo of a massive pile of mulch delivered to their house, hinting at a busy weekend. That evening, my mother-in-law called my husband and asked him to come over early Sunday morning to help his dad move 300 bags of mulch for their large yard's flower beds. She argued that since we weren't going to the zoo until after our son's nap, my husband could help for a couple of hours and still make it back for our plans. I was frustrated, but my husband brushed it off, saying it wouldn't take long, and that his mom assured him it was just a quick task. I warned him that his mom was likely trying to derail our plans to spend the day with them, but he insisted it was fine, claiming it would only take an hour or 2. As most can predict, things didn't go as planned. My husband went over first thing Sunday morning, meaning no breakfast in bed, and I had to get up to care for our son. I was annoyed but tried to let it go. While our son napped, I texted my husband to wrap things up. 2 hours later, when our son woke up, I called to say I'd be ready to head to the zoo after feeding him. My husband admitted they were behind schedule but promised to hurry. An hour and a half later, he called to say they still weren't done, but he was about to leave. Their house is a 15 to 20-minute drive away. By then, we'd missed our zoo window. Furious, I told him to stay and finish the mulch and not bother with Mother's Day since he hadn't done anything I'd asked for. He could tell I was livid. Later, his mom called, suggesting that since we chose to skip the zoo, I should bring our son over to hang out while the men finished the yard work. I was in no mood for that, and sharply told her I had no interest in spending time with the people who ruined my first Mother's Day. Instead, I stayed home, ordered pizza, and watched Netflix. When my husband got home, he apologized profusely and asked how he could fix it. Still angry, I told him he could have fixed it by not ruining my Mother's Day in the first place. I also said he should spend Father's Day with his parents because our son and I would be celebrating with my family. Since Mother's Day, my mother-in-law has been texting and calling, but I've kept my responses short and neutral. My husband has continued apologizing and asking how to make amends, but I've been too upset to engage. I know it's just one day and we could celebrate another time like we did for my mom and Mill, but it was my first Mother's Day. All I wanted was simple. And the real issue is my husband's inability to set boundaries with his overbearing mother, who disregards everyone else's feelings. On the Saturday before Father's Day, my husband asked if I was still going to my parents, and said he'd like to join us. I told him he could do what he wanted, but since we hadn't done anything for his dad, he might want to visit them instead. Ultimately, we both went to my parents' house and had a pleasant day. My dad insisted on grilling, the weather was great, and we spent time on their deck playing with our son. I noticed my husband getting a lot of texts, likely from his mom. She sent me a passive-aggressive message saying it was hurtful to spend Father's Day with my family at the expense of hers, but I responded that since she got to spend Mother's Day with her son, it was only fair I spent Father's Day with my family. I know my husband was hurt that we didn't acknowledge him for Father's Day, but I told him on the way to my parents that I was just matching his effort. I haven't tried to de-escalate the tension because I'm still deeply hurt that he prioritizes his mom over our family. This isn't the first time she's pulled something like this, and I'm exhausted by her constant boundary stomping. I've gotten better at keeping her at a distance and enforcing my own boundaries, but my husband struggles to do the same. Update. Thank you all for the support. Many asked for an update, so here it is. This weekend, my husband and I had a serious talk about everything. I shared how devastated and let down I felt about both Mother's Day and Father's Day. I wanted to celebrate him as a father just as much as I wanted to be celebrated as a mother. He admitted he knew he shouldn't have gone to his parents on Mother's Day, but felt trapped because his mom guilt-tripped him, saying his dad could get hurt without his help, and it would be his fault. He confessed he messed up and has been terrified I'd ask for a divorce. Since he brought it up, I told him that if this dynamic continues, I don't want to stay married. I clarified that while Mother's Day was upsetting, it's not the root issue. It's the final straw. His mother's overbearing behavior has been a problem since before we got engaged, and it's only worsened. I listed every instance I could recall where she overstepped or ruined important moments, like our honeymoon when she called twice daily, mornings to ask about our plans, evenings to hear how they went, plus endless texts demanding photos and saying how much she missed him. I can't believe I ever tolerated it. She tried to make our wedding about her, inserted herself into my pregnancy, and overstepped when we brought our son home, always prioritizing her own desires. I told him I don't want a divorce now, but if nothing changes, it's inevitable. I'd rather do it amicably now than let resentment build into a bitter conflict that would hurt our son. We were both emotional and crying by this point. I gave him time to decide how to proceed, but said if I don't see consistent effort to prioritize our family, I'll move forward with divorce. I've seen him promise to change before, only to fall back into his mom's orbit, so this time, the effort must be sustained. Here are the boundaries I'm insisting on, in no particular order. We each manage our relationships with our own parents. I'm done planning anything for his parents, like gifts, cards, or events. If they contact me, I'll redirect them to him. I won't visit them or take our son there without my husband present. If they show up unannounced, I won't let them in unless he's home. No last-minute plan changes for their convenience. We must agree on any plans involving our parents, and if we don't both agree, we decline politely without blaming each other. Major holidays like Christmas, Halloween, and Easter will be at our house, and we'll discuss inviting parents, but we're not going elsewhere for events involving our son, including his upcoming first birthday, which my mother-in-law is already trying to control. We'll alternate other holidays between our parents. We'll focus on being present. No more constant texting or calls with his mom when we're with my family. And no oversharing personal details like finances, health, or vacation plans unless we both agree. His visits to his parents can't come at the cost of quality time with us. He's at their house multiple times a week, but we're his immediate family now and should come first. We won't change plans just because his mom disapproves. She equates different with wrong. He needs therapy with a specialist in enmeshment, and we need couples counseling. I've realized I'm harboring so much resentment that I struggle to see him the same way, and I hate feeling this angry. When it comes to our son, our decisions are final, and if his mom disregards them, she loses access until she respects our rules. When either of us says no to our parents, the other backs them up. My husband needs to stop pushing me to appease his mom. He's clearly stressed about setting firm boundaries with his parents, and I sympathize. He feels caught between me and his mom, both with conflicting expectations. But I've made it clear I won't tolerate this dynamic anymore. I know this will cause drama with his parents, but if we don't address it now, it'll only get harder. What do you think? Am I being unreasonable? Are there other boundaries we should consider? Next story. My boyfriend turned controlling and clingy after we moved in together. When I tried to end things, he refused to leave my house, claimed I'd need to evict him, installed hidden cameras, and attacked me when I sought help. I, 46F, and my boyfriend, 38M, James, have been together for just over a year, living together since November. Before moving in, things were great. We lived in different cities, so our time was mostly weekends, enjoying each other's company, talking frequently via calls and texts, meeting each other's families, and resolving issues maturely. That's why we decided to cohabitate. But everything changed after we moved in. He became increasingly clingy, wanting to be together every moment. He started staying home constantly, and since I work from home, we were always together. It became overwhelming. When I tried addressing it, he blamed me, saying I wasn't giving him quality time, that being in the same room wasn't enough. So I made an effort to spend focused, distraction-free time with him daily. But it escalated. He'd throw tantrums if we were invited somewhere, and he'd refuse to go at the last minute, saying it was fine if I went alone. Within 30 minutes, he'd bombard me with texts, and if I didn't respond, he'd send threatening messages like, "I won't be here when you get back," or "You won't like what you find when you return." When I got home, whether immediately or hours later, he'd be crying, accusing me of neglecting his feelings. Initially, I apologized and tried to be more attentive, but then his insecurities spiraled. He repeatedly asked if I was seeing someone else, claiming it was his issue, but that voicing it helped. That made sense once or twice, not the dozenth time. We started arguing constantly because I was never apart from him long enough to even have the opportunity for someone else. He'd pick fights over nothing, yelling out of the blue. I discovered he'd read my journals and either hacked my phone or installed spyware, interrogating me about private entries or texts and lying that he'd seen them over my shoulder. This week was the breaking point. At a nice dinner out, after a pleasant day with no issues, he insisted on discussing our relationship problems in public, knowing I hate airing personal matters. I refused to engage, saying it wasn't the time or place. He persisted, then demanded we leave because my discomfort was embarrassing him. We left without eating the meal we'd paid for. On the 2-hour drive home, I cried quietly and he yelled, driving recklessly and slamming the brakes twice from 77 miles per hour to a full stop on the interstate, nearly causing an accident. He wouldn't let me out of the car. That night, I ended it, telling him I was done. He refused to leave, saying I'd have to evict him. He begged, cried, took my keys to prevent me from leaving, and threatened suicide. I don't want to burden my aunt with this drama, and I have no other nearby family. I own my home, so there's no landlord to intervene. Eviction takes a month or more, and he keeps promising he'll change, but I'm past caring. I've contacted the police, a lawyer, and a judge, but they all say they can't help unless he physically harms me. What can I do to manage this until he's out? Edit for context. I was married once to an abusive man who was secretly involved with his first wife. After our 2014 divorce, he remarried her, and she died under suspicious circumstances within a year. He died of a heart attack 2 years later. I raised his son, now 17. My next partner died in 2017 in a car accident, falling asleep at the wheel after a late shift. Another relationship in 2018 ended due to his cheating and alcoholism. I met James in December 2023, shortly after my October 2023 breakup. I'm not questioning whether to leave James, just how to handle things until he's out of my house. Update: it's been 4 months, and here's an update. Following advice, I filed for eviction a week after my initial post. I moved to a different bedroom, added locks to my bedroom and office, and stayed calm, avoiding arguments to keep things civil until the eviction. He grew increasingly erratic, swinging between crying, calm talks, and yelling daily. If I didn't respond to his texts or in-person demands within minutes, he accused me of ignoring him, regardless of what I was doing. It was draining, and I was counting down the days. A week before the eviction, he texted me while we were in the same room. I told him I wouldn't respond to another message. After he sent 3 more long texts, I set my phone down to leave the room. He attacked me, knocking me down, slamming my head and arm against the floor, attempting to assault me and headbutting me, leaving me with 2 black eyes. He then took my phone, packed his things, and left. This was a Friday evening. My cousin and a friend stayed with me that weekend. That night, my friend found a hidden camera in my fireplace, which I photographed and disconnected. We found a GPS tracker on my car and discovered my basement door's chain lock had been tampered with, the screws clipped short so it wouldn't hold. I documented everything. He called and threatened me all weekend, claiming he'd gone to his hometown, but I suspect he was watching my house. On Monday, I filed for a no-contact order, and he was arrested that day on unrelated charges. The order was granted, and he remains in jail. The past few months have been emotionally taxing. I didn't realize how much this affected my mental health. I'm exploring therapy as I need it. My physical injuries, bruising, and swelling have healed without lasting damage. I'm focusing on myself now and will be notified when he's released. Thank you all for the advice. Final edit. I'm deeply grateful for everyone's support and advice. I've decided to move, as many suggested. I confided in my aunt, who previously knew little about this, and she's offered to buy my house to keep it in the family. We've arranged for someone to help her with household tasks twice weekly and a meal delivery service. I spoke with my son, who assures me he's okay and wants me to be safe. My boss is helping transfer me to another office but said I can move before the transfer is complete. I'm working with a domestic violence organization, and my advocate is guiding me through this process. I'm overwhelmed and stressed, but doing what's necessary to stay safe. I'm disappointed in myself for putting my family in this situation and forcing them to adjust because of my poor choices. Thank you all again for your support.